I'm Scott Al Miller. It's the 22nd of September, 2022, and this is my vlog of daily life in Nicaragua. Today, I am in Leon, but I am filming this in the future, and in case this doesn't look like Leon to you, that's because I'm filming this in Estelí. And this is the Hex Hotel right here behind me, and this is the Multicentro Estelí here on the north side. We're really close to the stadium. This is one of the malls here in Estelí, so it has an attached hotel and conference area. It has a couple big anchor stores. There's a bank and a 24-hour AM/PM right over here, and then all the stores inside. Not a really large mall, but it is pretty functional with a lot of different stuff. We are in the north. We're not actually in downtown. This is Barrio Sandino, which is immediately north of El Centro. So we are heading out now to do some walking. We are here to work, but got up really early and are filming the city. So you don't want to see me when we're filming a new city. If I'm walking around the same places all the time, it's one thing to put my face up constantly, but right now we've got some interesting stuff to go see, and so we are off to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is head to the stadium. There's a beautiful modern stadium here in the city, and we're going to walk past that as we head towards the middle of town. Now, we only have so much time here in Estelí, so I want to make good use of it. I'm going to mix in a little bit of news about my day as we do so. The first thing that I know people are concerned about is how Clive is doing, and he did come home today, but not until late in the afternoon, mostly because we think Dr. Jorge's family is in love with our dog and wanted to keep him, so they kept saying he needed to be monitored and stuff, but we don't think that that was really so much true as much as they just wanted Boston Terrier snuggles. But he had a good night. He actually slept with Dr. Jorge, and all during the day, either his mother or his father was holding him, so he had a pretty fun time. But boy, was Mia happy when he came home. She missed her best friend so much. Now, this is gonna be a little bit loud because we are walking on the highway. If you're looking at a map, this is the Pan American. This is Nicaragua Route 1. This is the main road. Now, people will often tell you that the Pan American comes through Chinandega and Leon. It does not. That is Nicaragua 3, the Panamanian bypass. It is so much the bypass that many businesses along it are called, you know, the bypass pulperia, the bypass asado, or whatever. That is a bypass. This is as officially the Pan American as it gets. And what makes Estelí important is that it is the only major city that lies along the Pan American, and it is halfway between Managua and Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras. So all logistics coming in from Tegucigalpa or heading out to Tegucigalpa will pass through Estelí, making it a very important city. Now, the stadium itself is actually over there. You can see it. We're coming along it. It's a modern stadium. It's got the big lights. It's got a new roof. It's a bit different than what you see in Leon. Of course, Leon is building a new, even more modern stadium, but our current one is one of the old ones. Now, Estelí is in the mountains. This is one of the three big powerhouse Nicaraguan mountain region cities, or highland cities. The others being Matagalpa, which we were at just a couple weeks ago. There's a shot of the stadium. You can see it a little bit as we come by. Some people up there working. And Jinotega, which we have not been to yet on the show. I have been there, but it has been some time. And then Estelí. Jinotega being the little one of the three, and certainly the poorest. It is the city known for power generation, and it is the highest of the three at 1,000 meters. The lowest is Matagalpa at 700 meters. And here, why are there dogs running down the Pan American at full speed? This really bothers me. And Estelí here is 844 meters. So we're halfway. It's almost exactly the midpoint between Matagalpa and Jinotega. And as I'm walking and talking, you can feel that there's just a little bit less oxygen in the air. It's not bad, but it is slightly noticeable that I'm not getting as much air as I normally would. I'm also talking really fast and walking a little bit fast. It is a busy, busy morning that I'm recording this, and I want to make sure that we get a bit of the city in for you guys, because I only have so much chance to film up here in Estelí. And importantly, this is my first time in Estelí ever to actually be here on the ground. I was here almost 2 years ago with Paul and Melvin, but we only just drove through because it's the Pan American. We were literally coming in from Tegucigalpa, and we did it in the night. So I saw this road, I drove down this road over here in the middle of the night, but that was it. And so there wasn't much to see. Of course, we're gonna walk through all this garbage here. Great view of Estelí. Hopefully we'll get to the stadium in just a minute. Hopefully we can see something, because I don't know if there's going to be like a view of it as we come by, but we're getting pretty close. Now the teams here in Estelí, this is the stadium of Tren del Norte. One of the handful of big baseball teams here in the country. There's lots of baseball teams here. There's multiple leagues, but Estelí is with León and Chinandega, Managua and Rivas in the top league. This is the equivalent of the majors. It doesn't get any bigger than this. Really doesn't get any bigger than this anywhere in Latin America. These teams compete for the Nicaragua national representation every year, and more often than any other country, Nicaragua wins the all Latin American baseball competitions year after year. Here we go. Here's the stadium. So this has got to be the fire department for the stadium, and you can see the stadium right there past the trees. We're gonna be able to see it. Oh yeah, here we go. Estelí is in general a very modern city. Of course, most of you see Nicaragua through my wanderings, and I live in León, which is one of the colonial cities. So if you're seeing Nicaragua primarily through León or Granada, and of course Granada is the biggest city, obviously construction going on here. Granada is the most likely city that you will see in Nicaragua as a tourist, because it's the big tourist city. And León is number 2 because it's the other big colonial city. They have all the history, they've got the big cathedrals and those kinds of things, so it's logical why you would come see them. But if you live in Nicaragua, they do not actually represent the majority of Nicaraguan society. They are unique. First of all, Granada is not a large city. It's like the 7th largest city, maybe smaller in the country. So it's pretty far down the list. León is number 2, but they are the only 2 colonial cities of their type. But everyone sees them, and obviously the colonial nature is really interesting. So you can't deny that. By the way, these are some restaurants and stuff right along in front of the stadium. These are pretty cool. I've heard this is a really lively district at night. Estelí is a big party town. Got some beautiful orange flowers in the trees up here. And here's a modern park. Ooh, not sure what this is, but I think we need to head over to it. But before we do that, it's gonna make sure we get a view of the stadium over here. Make sure you guys are seeing what little bit we can see. It's pretty cool. And then this looks some kind of facility over here. There's like, I don't know, but we're gonna head, wait for traffic before we hop over here. I think this is actually the city library. This is really nice. Es un biblioteca. Got a dog and a lot of cars here. I'm just gonna get hit by this car, that's what I'm doing. Okay, no dog, don't get in the road. This is a great example of what modern Nicaragua looks like, that we don't see ever really in León. Actually, we do have a library like this in León. I just never show it. I need to get down there. It's in Fundesi, which is very far walk for me. But this is a gorgeous structure. So what that says is Biblioteca Municipal Cadilla de Estelí, but that just means the library of the mayor's office. So it's the official city library. And then this is the History and Archaeological Museum. I had no idea this was here. Look how beautiful this building is. That's fantastic. They're clearly not open right now, but this has got to go on the list of things we have to come see. This is really cool looking. And then there's a cute little park over here next to the stadium. So the stadium right there, and then a little park for the kids. My kids are too old for that now, but it's pretty cool. And look at this. This is all very nicely done. Oh, we're finding out. Opens in just a few minutes. A las ocho? Ah. And then, of course, a statue of Sandino here in Barrio Sandino. That's appropriate. Makes a lot of sense. This is a beautiful whole complex area here with the stadium, whatever these fenced complexes are. This one's obviously a religious compound of some sort that looks like a church, but it could be anything. And I don't think this is a major road. I think we're still heading on to something more major. Ooh, almost tripped. So with these cities, right, they are so much more modern than what you normally see, and it gives a completely different feel to the country. And I think it's really important to see these, because if you're going to live here, this is much more of the Nicaragua you are likely to encounter, whether it's Managua or Rivas or Matagalpa, Jinotega, Chinandega, Estelí, Boaco, Huigalpa. Most of these cities are not colonial, and a lot of their construction has grown up in the modern era. They are not old cities, or they've been around a long time, but they were not very big very long ago. And so they have a lot of their structures are quite new. And because they're not colonial, right, one of the reasons that Granada and León look the way that they do is that they have very strong city ordinances that say you can't change anything. Basically, the entire city is a living museum, which is very cool, very important, but it creates an aesthetic that people can't change. And so it makes it feel, and in some ways it actually just makes it quite a bit more poor. Oh, here we go, is the Instituto San Francisco. So it's definitely a religious institute, but we don't know what they do. And because you can't build buildings that you find practical or cost effective, but you have to spend the money to make them colonial, and you have to live within the confines of colonial structures, obviously very cool, obviously really special, but it is much more economical to build buildings that are based around the actual needs of the people and modern technology. And so the other cities have a lot of advantages because of that, but it hurts them for tourism. So it's a trade-off, obviously. And it's very special and unique, and you couldn't do that anywhere else because they are authentic colonial cities. So it's important that they be that way, and I in no way want to make it sound like I'm complaining. I'm simply explaining why they give an impression of being much more poor than they really are, because they have to look that way. It's just a requirement, and it makes sense. But these cities, you get so much more variety. And when you put them together, the modern cities are so much larger in population, but so much less known to the outside. And so that makes this walk extra interesting, because we're showing so much new today. Now I'm looking, we have one more block to go, and we're gonna hit Avenida Central. And that's what I'm looking for. I wanna be able to show you guys. So we saw the Pan American, we only saw it a little bit, but I plan on coming back on that most likely. Perfect, we can get across the road here. The Pan American being really, really important. It connects the entire region. And if you're familiar in the US, in Minnesota, in St. Paul, Minneapolis, it is US Route 35, elitist monkey. That sounds like an elitist monkey, but it's actually elitist monkey, which means the monkey of chicken wings, which is quite funny. But US Highway 35 coming out of Minneapolis, which actually goes all the way into Canada, I just don't know its designation in Canada, comes through, down through the US, comes through Dallas as 35E, goes right past where we used to live in Carrollton, comes down through Austin, through San Antonio, crosses into Mexico, and goes through most of the major Mexican cities before going into Guatemala, coming through Honduras. So somewhere near Antigua. I'm not sure if it's Antigua proper. So this should be Avenida Central. And it comes through Guatemala City, then into Honduras. It comes through Tegucigalpa, the capital there, and then eventually makes its way through Esteli, through Managua, through Rivas, near San Juan del Sur, but not actually through it, crosses the border at Piñas Blancas, and continues on to the major cities of Costa Rica before going on to Panama and finally dwindling out a little bit past Panama City. So it's a really important highway. The official main highway connects all the major cities of Latin, Central America, and Mexico, with the most important central cities in the United States and kind of somewhere in Canada. Canada kind of gets left out, and Belize gets completely skipped. There's no semblance of the Pan American being in Belize at all. And El Salvador, you'll notice, is the only Latin American country north of Colombia that isn't on the list. And that is because it and Honduras lay side by side, and a single highway cannot connect the two through their capitals. So to get around that, there is a secondary Pan American that splits off in Guatemala and comes through San Salvador down through all of El Salvador, which we took a little bit of when I went to Guatemala a few months ago. It then comes through just a tiny sliver of Honduras at the Bay of Fonseca, and then enters Nicaragua in the west, and that is the one that becomes Nicaragua Route 3 that eventually comes through Chinandega and through Leon, and then merges back into the Pan American proper at Managua. So it's interesting that Managua and Guatemala City are the split points for the Pan American and the Pan American bypass. A little bit interesting, not very interesting. But so that is why every city claims to lie on the Pan American, but there's actually two Pan Americans to make that possible. We're getting closer and closer to downtown here. This is pretty cool. Definitely a lively city. Different vehicles allowed on the road. That's another thing about Leon. A lot of the public transportation or service vehicles that are popular in Nicaragua are outlawed in Leon, or outlawed as taxis. You can own one privately, but no one ever does that. They're used as taxis, and you have to use full cars as taxis, partially because of the roads. Now it's hard to see, but one of the things that's cool here is that we have low cloud cover. This morning it was actually very low. The whole city was foggy. I was hoping I was going to be able to show some of that, but that did not work out. But we do have low clouds today. And in the distance, I don't know how much the GoPro is going to pick it up, but we have mountains all around us, which is pretty neat. I like it when you're in the cities and you're walking along and you have like things to see. Leon has volcanoes around it, so we do have the views in the distance, but here it is high mountains. Here in the highlands, we're not in a volcano zone. These are real mountains made by geologic pressure of plates pressing against each other and pushing the ground up. So they're mountain ranges, and this range runs down through central Nicaragua, but no volcanoes up here. So we tend to get heavy rains, big floods, but not volcanoes, not earthquakes. I'm gonna show down the street a little bit right here. You can see there's lots of hills in the distance. That's some beautiful countryside outside the city. Really, really nice. Let's go. And I don't know if you can see how tall they get. Those are some really high mountains out there. That's a very European looking zone. This area is where Nicaragua really starts to blend into the rest of Central America. Because one of the things that makes Nicaragua really unique is in Central America, it is very low-lying. There is not very much of Central America that lies that close to sea level. Of course, coming from the north, we think of the sea level portions of Central America as being what Central America is like, but it is not at all. The majority of Central America is very much in the mountains, has very mild weather, and is not like what you see on my show typically, right? Living in Leon, you get a very, very low-lying, warm view of the country and the region, but definitely the majority of Central America, completely different, and this is much more typical. Hello, puppy. Are you here for fruit? We have found Central Park. This is what we were shooting for. So we have obviously cathedral over there, park here, and this is the downtown main part of the street. I think we can, nope, it just turned green, so we're gonna wait. Not sure what all these buildings are, but we will wait for traffic to go by. I'm going to point out right here, this is the Chica Bus Agency, and that means, gracias. That means this is where you can catch the bus heading pretty much anywhere in Central America. Now, I love these in the parks, these little restaurants. Granada has some, but theirs don't seem to ever do anything. This is a real asada that's doing stuff. Buenos dias. Let's take a look at this park. It's pretty early in the morning that I'm filming, so not a lot of people out yet. People are mostly on their way to work. I'm hoping you can see the mountains over here past these buildings. It's really hazy and bright, so we can see them pretty well here on the ground. But a lot of playground facilities here too. This is so much more of a modern park. This feels a lot more like Chinandega. Oh, they have the gazebo roped off. We can't go up there. I mean, it's roped off with tape. I'm pretty sure we could go up there, but, and I don't know if you can see, there's actually water in here, which doesn't happen that often. So that's really nice. Means they're actually using it. All right, we're coming up on the cathedral. You can see the Saints door over here. My screen keeps turning off, so I don't know if you can see me pointing. And there's a La Colonia. It's a fancy, but you can tell it's very modern. Ours in Leon is built in a colonial structure. It's not actually colonial, it's just colonial style. It's about 200 years old, which is not old enough to be called colonial by too many stretches. Although it is important to remember that colonial era in Nicaragua lasted until 1821, not until 1776. So you can be about 50 years newer than in the US and still have colonial influences. I'm gonna grab a little bit more of the cathedral here because this is an interesting structure. It's like, I don't know how much you can see, but there's like a second dome back there, and then the mountains in the distance. And this street, and that's a cute Disney styled place. We're gonna head this way back to the main road because that's what I want to show. What a great park. I mean, all the parks in Nicaragua tend to be pretty nice. Like, parks are a major part of community life here in the country. So in general, they tend to be plentiful and well maintained. Buenos dias. Big Burger here, obviously not open at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's probably more like 8 o'clock at this point, but a little bit early for a Big Burger. It looks like they're probably pretty good. Pretty soon, I'm actually going to tell you about my day. I'm intrigued with walking around Estelí and a little bit distracted. This Gonzalez building is another great example of, you would never get this in Leon. Look how cool and modern this is. What a great apartment. That first floor, well, any of them, those would make some amazing apartments right on this intersection. Big curved glass windows, like really cool. Anything but colonial, but looks a lot like what you would find in Matagalpa. So the style is similar between these cities. Now, obviously, the Estelí, well, I don't know if it's obvious. Estelí's claim to economic fame is based mainly around the fact that it sits on the Pan American. So it is the main transfer point. It is the logistics hub of northern Nicaragua, in the same way that Chinandega is in western Nicaragua, which is sitting on the bypass, and it has the port. So Chinandega has access to the port of Corinto. I mean, it controls the port of Corinto. Oh, pretty cool. Restaurants here. This is the club. And with the port of Corinto, they have all the ships coming in. So they are the main shipping hub for the country. Esteli is the main trucking hub for the country, with everything going between Honduras and Guatemala and Mexico coming through here. There is some amount of trucking traffic, obviously, coming from Costa Rica and Panama, but Panama is not a manufacturing country, so there's very little shipping from there. I mean, extremely little. And Costa Rica is a very small country, and so while it does make a number of things, and we do import a number of things from there, the amount is very, very minimal compared to Honduras, which is a heavy manufacturing and production center and a much larger country. And then, of course, Guatemala to the north is bigger than all the other countries combined, and manufactures a lot of things. So those, primarily Honduras and Guatemala, are shipping just all kinds of things into the country. And if we were to get things from Panama, I think they primarily are coming on ship through Corinto, not by road, because it's just more effective, and that's how Panama works. This is really annoying. We'll just walk on past that. All right, very wet sidewalk here. I'm hoping this is an enjoyable walk. Very, very different than you see other places. Coming up on a pretty neat looking building here. On the right with this awning, this reminds me of something I would see in Guatemala. No, I'm gonna see if I can walk in the road. It's probably pretty stupid. Look at this. Don Luis. That is a really large restaurant. Oh, he's turning. Don't want to walk in front of him. That would be bad. Things not to record. Your host being squished by a truck. That is a very fancy looking restaurant. I really want to eat there now. But we have limited time here in Estelí. We have things we have to do. I do not get to explore the restaurants on this particular trip. There will be many more trips to Estelí, I am sure. These northern cities are so interesting, and there's just so much different. This is the bank line. This is one thing that's universal in Nicaragua, is that everyone has to go to the bank in person. It's not 100% true, but it's effectively true. And the lines are just crazy. There's a kid's store, I think. All right, this is a lot of heavy traffic. It's hard for me to do anything other than kind of just show you what I'm walking through and talk about it. I can't really think too much because I'm spending all my time dodging things on the sidewalk or people, or trying not to fall over, or traffic. All the food out here smells really good. There's a lot of restaurants and stuff through this area, as you would expect. And of course, that is accordion music, always. Lots of fried chicken right here. Got another place just firing up to do its chicken. In general, Estelí is a rather affluent city. It is very expensive to live here compared to a lot of the other cities. It is considered a very high-cost real estate city, is my understanding, but it does not have the economy of Matagalpa. Matagalpa produces more, and so is number 2 to Managua in total production, but Estelí has more expensive real estate. All right, lots of dirt here in the sidewalk. It is, for those wondering, it's currently 8:15. So it's still quite... Los Estados Unidos. We have a Pali. The grocery store is downtown. The shops are very similar to what you would find in Leon. Just the style of them obviously gets to be different because they don't have to fit into the colonial structures. All right, we're getting out of the heaviest area. Going to pull out my notes. Unfortunately, I put my watch on the wrong arm and I'm all discombobulated because it's not where I'm expecting it to be. All right. Nothing like filming, talking, using my phone, and crossing an intersection all at the same time. I'm a little bit ridiculous. I do get a lot of attention. There's not a lot of people who are GoProing in Esteli, I have to say. I haven't seen anyone yet. It is funny how much I stand out everywhere I go because of the GoPro. Just no one else does this. This is annoying. I took notes for the show so that I'd be ready, and they are gone from my notepad. Well, that's dumb. What the heck? Hold on. Still looking. No, they like haven't synced or something. I don't know what's going on. That's problematic. All right. We will catch up on all of that later because I really don't have a good memory of the day, and that's why I wrote it all down, had it all ready to go, and now we're just out for a walk. So my plan, though, is to do a bit of walking, but I don't want to fit it all into today's show, or this is going to be really, really long, and I have limited time here in Estelí. So what I'm going to do is we're going to walk a little bit further, and then I'm going to wrap it up for the day, and I'm going to continue filming tomorrow. Now, on the 24th, I have already filmed because we have an awesome procession going on in Leon. So that is filmed in Leon. But the 22nd today and 23rd tomorrow are going to be filmed here in Esteli, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the 25th will be as well. So look for those if you're interested in Esteli content and seeing more of this city and just barrio walks through the town to see what's here. That is my plan. I really don't have any particular content to get for you guys other than what a cool place this is, and come explore it with me. Good exercise this weekend, though, just getting up and walking. Unfortunately, on the day that I'm recording this, I have a number of work items that I have to do, and so I'm stuck with quite a bit of just being on the phone and things. So I have to get back to my hotel and be on the phone when I could be out here recording for you guys. So that's unfortunate, or else I'd really go exploring all over the place. But this is a good walk right here, and I'm hoping to come out after my meetings and walk again. So I'm not saying we're not going to get anything, just not as much as I would have hoped given the amount of time that I have here. So the bus ride to come up here is worth talking about. We'll actually do the bus ride in a few days, but it takes about 4 hours to come here from Leon by the public bus, at least the one that we took. And that's not terrible. That's the chicken bus, which is a local bus. It is not an express, so you're stopping all along the way for people waiting on the side of the road and dropping people off all over the place. So it really does take quite a while to get between places, but it's comfy, it's easy, and it's cheap, and that's pretty hard to beat. And leaving at 4:30 in the afternoon, it worked just fine, and it was raining, and it took about 3 hours to get. What you do is you don't go directly from Leon to Estelí, which is pretty much the case for everything up here because none of them sit directly on connecting roads. Instead, what you do is you go to the bus terminal at San Isidro, same as you do for Matagalpa, and then you catch the bus either to Matagalpa to the south or to Estelí to the north. So it's really not hard. You just have to know that it's San Isidro that you're going to and not Esteli. So you just get into the Leon terminal, ask for the bus to San Isidro, and it's like 69 Cordoba, so just under $2. And then it's about 3 hours to San Isidro. You get dropped off during the day, you get dropped off at the terminal of San Isidro, and at night they just drop you off on the street. And if you're heading to Esteli, just make sure you're on the right or east side of the road, and the bus there's a little bus stop if you're not at the terminal. If you're at the terminal, it's really easy, just walk to your bus. But if you're on the street, just make sure you're on the northbound side of the street, and the Managua bus will pull over and pick you up in San Isidro. And then it's about an hour up to here. There's only really 2 stops, or I think there's only one major stop north of San Isidro, and that's Trinidad, La Trinidad, and then you're in Esteli. And the bus terminal for Esteli is on the south side of the city. And it's as easy as that. So 2 buses, and I think the last bus is 30 cord. So the total 99 cord, so about $2.90 maybe, to come all the way from Leon to Esteli in about 4 hours. So if you're willing to put in the time, it is very, very cheap to move around the country and go really far, which is cool. It makes it very accessible for exploring. Now, of course, if you have your own car or whatever, this is an easy drive. Out of Leon, it is a straight shot. Pretty much you head north towards Trinidad, take the right at Talica, head to San Isidro, take the left at the Empalma, and you come right into Esteli, because you're coming from the Pan American bypass to the Pan American, and there's just the one road that connects them. And what it is if you're looking at a map, Talica is the crossroads or Empalma point on the bypass road, and San Isidro is the Empalma or crossroads point on the official Pan American. And there is a major highway that connects the 2 Empalmas so that you can move back and forth between the 2 main north-south roads. So really easy to navigate the region on the main roads, because pretty much anything you would want to do is going to be directly off of those roads. All right, we're getting pretty far south here in the downtown area. This is a good sized city. It is not as big as Matagalpa, certainly not as big as Leon. I think we're like 180,000. I didn't actually look up the population, but it is a pretty serious city. And obviously when you have cities where people don't use cars a lot, where everybody's on foot, 180,000 people, even 100,000 people, tends to have a pretty dense urban center and makes for a very urbane feel. This is a bakery, a lot of good looking baked goods right there. Bicycle shop. This is very modern. Ooh, I like that. So, being one of the highland cities, the temperatures here during the day, so I'm going to struggle with this a little bit because I know what they are in Celsius. I'm going to show down the road here a little bit. It goes down quite a bit, and you can see the mountain in the distance. All right, hold on. Got traffic. All right. Hola. That was our waitress from last night. Buenos dias. So the temperatures here during the day typically get around 26 degrees, which is warm, but not bad at all. And at night, they get down into the teens. This morning when I got up, it was 19 degrees, which for those in Fahrenheit is about 66, 67 degrees, which is not cold. But when you look at the comments, when you look at people who visit Nicaragua and don't really spend a lot of time exploring the country, they pretty much go to 1 or 2 tourist areas. There's some breakfast getting made. If you look at the tourist areas, Granada, Leon, San Juan, they are the low-lying mostly near the beach areas. Granada, not so much, but they're very low lying, very, very hot. They're some of the hottest cities in all of Latin America. And if you come here casually as a tourist, and this is one of the reasons that I warn against doing the tourist path, if you're actually interested in Nicaragua, you see these people who leave these comments, Nicaragua is so hot. Oh, why would you ever want a hot shower? It's so hot there. There's a lot of those comments, right? And it's true if you live in a place like Leon, where I do, it is very warm, right? All the time. We are possibly, I don't actually know, possibly the third hottest city in Latin America. Chinandega seems to be the hottest, with no clear competition. Mérida, Mexico, Leon, and Panama City then compete for the next hottest, roughly. So whether it's the second hottest, third hottest, or what, but it's in the category of the absolute hottest cities. Now, it's important to remember, as these really hot cities, it is only that they average hot. They don't have the extreme hot days that you would get in, say, Texas. So cities like even Dallas, which is cold for Texas, and certainly Houston and San Antonio. This is a beautiful building right here. Very interesting design. I love curved corners. Always stand out. Oh, we have a boulevard. Where do I want to go? I don't know. I'm going to show a little bit of this. Some beautiful walls. Hopefully no one's running over me. It's hard to look at all the directions as I talk. So, in Texas, we expect a hot day to be 110 degrees. And in Leon, the hottest possible day is the equivalent to 110, 111 in Dallas, or 114 in Houston, is about 99 in Leon. So on the hottest days, we're not that hot. But on the coldest days, even Houston could see snow, and Dallas expects to see snow. I hope you can see that mountain peak in the distance. That's pretty cool. In Texas, we get quite cold. We can have our pipes freeze. But here, even in the mountains, you're never going to freeze. And in Leon, a cold, cold day is about 77 degrees. So what's important to remember is that the variation in temperature in Nicaraguan cities is very low all throughout the year. Not just day to day, but the entire year, the variation is quite low. And this does a few things. One is it allows the average to be quite high while being still livable. Because if you average 90 degrees, but your highest is 99 and your lowest is 77, you are, and I don't think we average 90, I think we average in the 80s. It's always warm, but it's rarely unbearable. And it never stops. But in Texas, for example, or New York, you have days that are just extremely hot and days that are extremely cold, and it's very hard to ever handle it because you always need a coat or you always need air conditioning. It's just the extremes are too much. And so that is extremely different in how you view temperatures. So when we say these are the hottest cities, okay, this is a high school we're walking past. Well, you can see the sign here, Colegio Nuestra Señora de Rosario, and I step off the sidewalk and fall. I'm okay. And so that gives a very different impression. And so I'm always surprised because I moved here I used to live in New York, I used to live in Texas. Never is the weather as bad here as there. When I'm gonna get sweaty, I will get so much sweatier in a Texas or a New York than I will in Nicaragua. Even in the hottest cities, even in Chinandega. But here it's predictable. And so there's that. Then when you come up, so if you're a tourist, you go to these really hot places and you get this impression Nicaragua's really hot. And that's just not true in the way that it's being relayed. People say it as this huge negative, it's so hot you can't handle it. Well, have you gone to the cold cities? Because 67 degrees is not that hot. I don't know who's getting all sweaty and has to change their shirt all the time at 67 degrees. And if you said the same thing in the US, well, I went to Phoenix, I went to Orlando. The US is so hot. Well, sure, but the US has a lot of really cold too. If you go to Anchorage, I guarantee you're not sweating all the time, right? So it's all about choosing the place that has the weather you're interested in. And if you want really mild temperatures, I have no idea what they're doing here. If you want really mild temperatures, you have these mountain cities, and several of them to choose from that have great weather. Yes, they're still relatively warm. They are not places that are going to get snow, they're kind of perfect. A little bit on the warm side still for me. I do prefer the still colder weather of Honduras or Guatemala, but they are very, very mild, and they make for great outdoor lifestyles. So Matagalpa, Jinotega, Esteli, and several others that are smaller, they're the biggest ones that are colder, we're going to turn here because the road kind of disappears. They offer some really amazing weather options that I think everyone overlooks when they're talking about Nicaragua. They simply ignore the fact that huge swaths of the country, very large portions of the population, do not live in those hot temperatures. Those are just the tourist zones. Even Managua is much more mild than any of those cities that are frequented by tourists. And that's important to remember. The majority of the population of Nicaragua lives in maybe not cold, but more mild temperatures than what almost any tourist is going to experience. Now, the number of Nicaraguans who live in those places that are touristy and very hot is still high. It's probably somewhere in the vicinity of a third of the country, but only a third. And even within those zones, even if you're in Managua, there are portions of Departamento Managua that get downright cold. They just don't have huge populations, and they have zero tourists. Now, the other thing, so that's the first thing that when you're looking at Nicaragua, you have to understand is that there are the hot cities and the cold cities, and people typically only go to the hot ones. And then the other thing to understand is the variation, which I mentioned, but it's important to understand how it affects you as a person who may decide to live here, and how it affects you as a person who will visit here. When you come to Nicaragua, there are certain things that are going to most generally be true. And I know a lot of people who do this, and I've done this myself multiple times, and it's basically always true. When you leave and you go somewhere, chances are you're going to be going somewhere colder. Partially because it's just when people travel. Oh, I'm going to go back to the United States for Christmas. Well, almost all of the United States is at least colder for Christmas. So you spend a few weeks in the US, and you're always in some combination. Oh, that's loud. Hold on. We're just gonna walk past that for a second. You're always in some combination of either continuous air conditioning or you are in cold weather. Those two things are almost always true when traveling somewhere else. And so what happens is you leave Nicaragua and you get used to a colder temperature, or you live somewhere else and you just come to Nicaragua to visit. And often you do that when it's cold somewhere else because you want to come somewhere warm to get away from the cold. And then when you get here, what is not actually that hot feels really hot for two reasons. One, it's just hotter than where you came from. You're not going through the normal seasonal shifts that gives your body some amount of time to adjust. And so it tends to be a little bit of a shock. So even coming here, I remember coming here in 2019 with Alan and Rachel, and we were dying from the heat, and it was 84 degrees. I live in Texas where we have hit 111 and held it for days. This is a beautiful house right here. I hope you see this pink house. This is really cool. Making sure I'm grabbing it. I hope this sidewalk goes somewhere. Okay, this is a sidewalk fail right here. I don't know if you can see. That's a meter drop. So we're gonna show this house as I try to walk around. All right, that was stupid. We're gonna walk on the road here. Oh, that's a cool house being built behind that wall. Okay. So this on the right is a Rosquillas. This is a Rosquillas bakery. So Rosquillas are these little tiny like donut things, and they consider them a dessert. I wouldn't myself consider them a dessert. They are more like a bread or a cracker. It's a hard bread Maybe there's just the slightest bit of sweetness to them, but I don't detect it. But they are used in place of biscotti in the local culture. So if you're having coffee in the morning or something and you're not having like breakfast, you just want like a little something crunchy to have with it instead of a sweet cookie, they have those. They don't have any, there's no sugar on them, there's no flavoring on them. It's just like a little bit of a little tiny bread ring. And they're very popular. You can get them anywhere, but they're mostly made up here in the north for whatever reason. So, and some people on the show have asked about them, like where's the best place to get them. I can't honestly tell the difference between good ones and bad ones, so I don't know. Not my thing, like they're fine. Like if you give me one, I'll be like, oh, I can eat these, but I never go out looking for them. They're just not quite enough flavor. We're gonna wait a second here. We got a chicken bus going by. This is the Pan American, so a bit of traffic out here, but way more traffic down here than there was in Barrio Sandino. I believe we're actually at this point in the barrio to the south of El Centro, but I don't know its name off the top of my head. I'm trying to figure out, oh, there is a spot to cross the road. Crucero. Here. I don't know that being on this side makes it easier to cross, but there's lines, so we're gonna at least die officially instead of just crossing at random. People are stopping for us. Nice. Somehow you can do crazy things in Nicaragua and you don't die. It's amazing. So the shock of coming to the warm temperature, whether you just acclimated or have been for a long time somewhere else, makes even 84 degrees. Suddenly you're like, this is so warm. 84 degrees is not warm. 100 is warm. Even for New York, 84 is not very warm. So that effect of suddenly hitting warm temperature makes everything feel like it's so hot. And it takes humans typically several weeks, closer to 2 months, to be able to adapt to a new temperature. So what happens quite typically is people come to Nicaragua and spend the majority of their time here, or all of it, without ever having enough time to acclimate to whatever temperature shift they just made. Now, if you're coming down to go to the beach, you want to lay on the sand, you want to go party and drink at night, whatever, that probably doesn't matter too much to you. But if you're coming down here and you're like, oh, can I handle living here? You're going to have this memory of this temperature shock caused by going from a cold place to a hot place, and then probably only staying in the hottest locations of that place and exacerbating the issue and feeling like it's really, really warm. But when you live here, you're in it all the time. The temperature really doesn't vary. And even in the hottest cities, you acclimate after a few months, and then it gets pretty mild. And what was unbearable before, 86 degrees in the afternoon, suddenly becomes a pleasant day, and you would never want air conditioning. And that's the other piece of the puzzle, is that, hold on, it's very loud, we're gonna give it a second. All of these vehicles are so loud. Oh, this is a really big construction building here. Wow. I don't see that too often. And this is a cool building here too. These are all just different styles. We just don't see this in Leon, so there's nothing particular about this building to be like, wow, but it's neither American style nor Leon style. This place for kids over here is really cool too. It's a language center. All right, so because of all of these reasons, it's not really that hot and it's always the same temperature. The idea that you need air conditioning, so many foreigners when they come here say, of course you need air conditioning. I can't, and the locals only don't have it because they can't afford it, and they want it for sure. And that's not the case. Even as someone who lives here, much of the time I don't want air conditioning. And I'm from New York, so I'm used to very cold weather in general, right? That's what I grew up with, that's what I acclimated to. And if I could have my preferred weather anywhere, I like it quite cold. I don't like snow, but I like it quite cold, 50, 60 degrees. I like wearing a fleece, I like wearing jeans. That's, if I could do that every day and had nothing else as a factor, that's what I would do. But as someone who's built for the cold, someone who's used to the cold, oh my gosh, it's so loud. As someone who's really preferential to the cold. Once I have acclimated here for several weeks, I have very little desire for air conditioning. I do like to sleep with it when I'm in León, because León is quite warm. And if I'm out walking when I get back, yeah, I like to cool down with the air conditioning, because otherwise I get sweaty, because I'm out in the sun doing things that no one really does. But there is, when locals say they are not looking for air conditioning and they don't care, they mean it. Because if you go in and out of air conditioning on a regular basis, or stay in air conditioning all day long, it does the same thing. It stops you from acclimating. And while the air conditioning feels great, it makes the rest of your day hot, because you get used to the air conditioning. But if you're always in the temperature, it allows you to adjust to it, and it becomes very easy very quickly to not feel hot all day long. And that's one of those, there's so many factors that foreigners are doing to make themselves feel hot all the time. And one of the ones I've seen some people do is go out in the middle of the day when it's hottest and avoid going out in the mornings and evenings when it's cool. Well, that's just part of living any place that's warm. Use some common sense, do what everyone else does, and shift your time of day from the hottest times to the coolest times, and that alone solves a whole lot of things. It makes it much, much easier. So consistent temperatures, not using air conditioning, and choosing locations that are not ridiculously hot are all ways that you can really dramatically adjust the temperatures when you're in Nicaragua and have a totally different experience or a totally different perspective on what it's like here. So that I think if you do these things and really take them into account, you won't have the effect of, or you'll understand when I say it doesn't make any sense when people say, oh, it's so hot. This is a country. It has lots of different temperatures. There are ways to be cool and ways to be warm. And if you're saying León is hot, yes, León is hot. But you can't say Nicaragua is hot. You need to preface that. Just as the US is not hot or cold, it is a big place with lots of temperatures. And if you treat Nicaragua appropriately, you're going to find that you have a very large range of choices as to what you want your personal temperature to be like. This is the Pan American that we are walking up again, just in case I didn't say it. There's a lot of traffic now that we're getting closer to 9 o'clock in the morning. It's definitely picking up. So we're gonna leave you there for the day. I'm gonna come back after the walk and fill you in on my day, which will only take a minute, because I honestly don't remember at all what today entailed, but I really wanted to get this walk in and get a bit of this city. And I'm gonna head out in just a little while and do some more walking around, because I want to get quite a lot of the city for you guys in different areas. These are the Pan American and Avenida Central are definitely important things to see, but they're also not a great look at what normal life is like in the city. This is the bypass and the downtown road. So if you do that in León, that's Rubén Darío and the bypass out east, which I did do on the episode with Paseo Real. But you know, you don't get the look at what life is like on the regular streets. You're very limited as to what you have. So that is it from here, and let's go talk about the day. All right, it only took 2 days before I had time to come out and actually record the rest of today's update with the things that I did for the day, because I had made notes on my note-taking app. I use Notebook by Zoho, which I like a lot, but it was not working on my phone. I think I had too many notes. I actually had to delete a bunch. But here's the stuff so hopefully you enjoyed this insanely long walk today. I'm really glad we got to bring you a lot of Estelí. That was I put a lot of effort into getting into Estelí. That was 8 hours of travel had to be done to get there. I'm back in León recording this part now a couple days later. So this took a lot of work to be able to go get the amount of film that we did in Estelí. And as you will find out, a lot of things went wrong and I missed a lot of filming time. So I'm really glad that we got as much as we did, and hope that you guys really enjoy that. But I didn't have all my stuff to tell you about my day today, so saving that till now. And here we go. I'm actually recording in the rain, and you'll notice I don't have my normal hat on. If you want to know what happened, go watch my shorts that explain what happened with my hat. Also, if you watch my shorts, you can see a little bit of information about the bus ride, as well as a really short room tour of the Hex Hotel in Esteli that we started the video at, so you can go see what that room was like. It was quite nice, by the way. Okay, so big thing today, Slime Rancher 2 released in pre-release on Steam. Luciana has been wanting this for a year and has been telling me there is no getting this on discount, there's no waiting for a sale, getting this on release day for forever. So, and Liesl wants it, but Luciana really, really wants it. And when she wants and does a lot of research like this on a game, she really does play them like crazy and generally gets hundreds of hours of playtime. I'm actually going to hold this microphone because it just ends up sounding so much better when I do. My father, her grandfather, bought that for her and Liesl today. I had it installed long before she woke up. First thing this morning, I bought it. Liesl got it installed and ready for her, and that is what they did today. So that's very cool. Also, speaking of video games, today is the release of the first video of my new channel, Literary Gaming, which I will attempt to link here in the video notes and maybe link at the end of the video. That is a channel just for me, kind of like my camera channel. So it's a chance for me to just talk about literary gaming, which is a thing I care a lot about in video games. And there aren't that many people who really talk about video games in the context of being interactive literature, so I'm excited to have a place to do that and already have some followers and some people commenting that it's something they're really interested in. I'm actually on a tripod today on the Volta grip, just because I felt like it. I wanted to do something different. Here we are. This morning I spent a lot of time working with Zoho Connect, which is an app we used a long time ago. I had to spend about an hour on the phone with support with Zoho because we had some problems with Zoho Connect. Actually got that working for the first time in quite a long time, and our team is much larger, so we're doing a really large-scale test of Zoho Connect, and I think we're going to be using it for the company. It's a pretty cool tool, does a lot of things. We have a new developer for the company that started today. That's just exciting. We have not had a developer previously. We always have people who can do some development, but it's never a thing the company has done, and now we have on-staff developers, so that's really cool. I did some research. Luciana's wanted me to fix this for a while. She has a Lenovo tablet laptop thing. It's a convertible, and it died a few months ago. I finally got everything I needed to be able to really look into it, and sadly the answer is its hard drive is completely dead. So I think the unit overall is going to keep working, but I need to go back to the US and buy a hard drive for it, take it all apart, and get it repaired. That's going to be a large project, and hopefully we can get it working. Our plan is actually to get her a new laptop, because that one's a couple years old and really been through the ringer, and we want to get her a brand new one, so that I'm not sure why he's watching over my shoulder as I work. And
Wow.
and she is going to get a brand new one. She knows this is not like a present. She's going to get a new one when we go back in December, and then this one hopefully will move on to the company, and hopefully I can get it fixed. So that was a big thing today. Then this evening we went out for Italian to the little Il Capriccio. We went to the little Italian place in El Centro. Alan and Anna joined us and hung out there, and it was our first time there in a while. While we were there, dinner was fantastic. It always is. They're really, really good. Hola. And we were there and we were talking with Alan because this is our first time really seeing him since he is back from the United States. And it's really interesting that, of course, before he went back to the U.S., there was a lot of like, oh, I really miss the U.S. And it's always tough being away for a long period of time. But when he went back and spent a little bit of time, really quickly it was, oh my gosh, I miss Nicaragua. It's time to get back and be here. So he's very thankful to be home. But the one really big thing, and this is everybody has the same thing, is that milk is something you miss an awful lot. It's very hard to get milk here. I mean, we get milk, obviously, but we have no real good way to get good milk. The quality of milk that you get in the United States just doesn't exist here. You can get it in Guatemala, you can get it in Colombia, but these southern Central American countries are very, very hot. They don't have a way to produce that kind of milk. And so the milk you get here is not very tasty, and it's super ultra pasteurized. All of those things really contribute to it not tasting like the milk from home. It's very different. And so that's a thing that people really miss. And because you can't get the milk, you end up not being able to get products made from milk in the same way either. So I did an episode recently where we talked about the ice cream and how that is different. This is different too, right? It's the same kind of thing, but you don't get ice cream like you want It's very hard. But there are ways. So we were talking about it at dinner, and he's talking about how much he really missed Nicaragua. But the one thing that is real is when he does go back, the milk and the ice cream really are so much better. It's not like other things, right? We say we'll like miss, I miss Impossible Whoppers at Burger King, and then we go home and get one, and it's like, it's okay. But man, it's not like I remember it. I remember it being so good, and we loved it so much, and now our tastes have changed. The bread's too sweet. It's too salty. You can taste the chemicals. It's not what we remember. And so most things are like that. But milk, no, really, you go back and milk is one of those things you're just like, oh my gosh, the dairy products, the cheeses, the selection, and all that is really, really better. It just really is, right? There's some really good cheese here, but you do not get dairy here the way that you do in the U.S. And so we were talking about this at dinner, and we're like, you've tried like Dos Pinos and you really don't like it? And he's like, no. We're like, oh my gosh, you have to. So we're telling him about the ice cream options, and he's like, there's actually okay ice cream. We're like, yes, it's not as good, but the stuff you're eating is the vegetable oil stuff. There is dairy ice cream. It's brought in from another country. It's brought in from Costa Rica. And so he's like, that does sound interesting. So after our Italian dinner, Paul took to-go dinner back for the kids. He drove that back. Dominica and I took Alan and Anna, and we walked to the Super Express because I'm like, the Super Express on this block I know has a Dos Pinos cooler. So we went there and got a bit of Dos Pinos. I got a big thing to take home for the family of just vanilla with caramel, and then we got like ice cream bars to eat there. And so the four of us sat, and because all the Super Expresses here, all the Super Minis, I should say, not all, nearly all have tables and spots to eat. Like, you get that a lot in the United States too, so it's not like a unique thing, but that truck's having a problem. And but they're really commonly have eating areas, and it's not uncommon to have large eating areas. And this particular Super Express near Il Capriccio in El Centro has a really large, it's like almost the size of the Super Mini itself, seating area, nice tables, a colonial building sits on the street. It's not fancy, but it's quite nice. It's a great place to sit and enjoy the food you just bought at the Super Mini. But I did notice when we were in El Salvador that there was one there that we went to that was beautiful. Had these great gardens and like really, really fancy, all this decorated stuff. Like it was like a really nice restaurant, kind of like a cafe thing. And it was a Super Mini in El Salvador. I'd never seen anything like it. It was really nice. But so we sat and we ate ice cream at the Super Express, and Alan is like, oh my gosh, this is actually really good ice cream. It's not like the best back home, but it's like generic ice cream back home, and that's pretty good. And so we solved a huge ice cream problem that I don't know what had happened that Alan didn't know to try other brands of ice cream other than Eskimo. Eskimo makes vegetable oil Nicaraguan ice cream for really, really cheap. Dos Pinos makes, U.S. priced ice cream in Costa Rica with real dairy cream, and it's quite good. Not going to write home about it. Not like you got to come to Nicaragua and try our ice cream. It's nothing like that. But it is completely tasty ice cream that generally satisfies most ice cream cravings. And this was just the regular Dos Pinos. There's also the expensive ones. There's not too big of a selection with that, but there are a few. We really like the Dutch Orange, which is orange ice cream with chocolate in it. And that one is my favorite. You can get them with figs and all kinds of unique flavors. So those are kind of cool, but those are really expensive. You really notice those. So... ¿Estoy ocupado? Hola. Hola. En el video. Sí. Sí, sí. And so there's some really cool flavors and stuff that estoy ocupado. So those are really cool. Those are really interesting. And there's actually a decent selection of the different qualities when you put them together. So that's a really big deal that you can solve a lot of that if you shop around. And we just didn't know that was a thing that was missing. So we then solved that. On the walk home from there, we then went by, and there was a place on the street where I got recently, a couple weeks ago, what are essentially pizzelles Adios from a woman on the street. And the kids were like, these are fantastic. I was just trying them out. And I was like, I stopped by in the darkness, and this woman had them, and I'm like, 10 quart, I'll buy some cookies. I took them home, and the kids were like, these are fantastic. Next time, get a whole bunch. So this time, I said, we're walking this way, because I know where she was before. We'll see. And Dominica never believes that I know my way around the city. So we walk down these streets that she's never seen and go through Saragossa and end up finding the woman on the street corner. So I know exactly how to find her now, because that's twice in the same spot. I predictably went right to her, and I'm like, I want 20 bags of cookies. And she's like, okay then. And so she loaded up plastic bags for us, and we took 20 bags of these. So each one probably has between 6 and 10 little cookies, but they're basically pizzelles, really small pizzelles. They don't have powdered sugar on them, but they taste like pizzelles for the most part. And here they're called like little bits of things, little cookies, something like that. Like that's actually what it's called, and in Spanish, of course. And so we brought those home, and they were quite a hit. So that was our day. Actually quite a bit going on today, in addition to the hour-long walk through Estelí. So sorry that this is a 75-minute long video, I think it's going to be, but sometimes there's just a lot to bring you, and I hope that you all really enjoy that. Please remember, like and subscribe. If you're still hanging out, oh my gosh, thank you. Like and subscribe. Feel free to buy me a coffee. Links are below. And leave your comments. Ask things about Estelí. There's more Estelí footage coming in the next few days, but not tomorrow. And yeah, that is it for here. So I will see all of you tomorrow.